A Civil War reenactment is in part a memorial service. It is partly, too, a leisure activity. Furthermore, most reenactors assert an educational import to the performance, and to develop their roles many pursue archival research with a rare dedication. On the other hand, Civil War reenactments are increasingly commercial spectacles, with as many as 50,000 Americans routinely gathering at or near historical Civil War battlefields in order to stage performances that purport to recreate the conflict, while hundreds of thousands more spectate. I will show how theoretical issues of authenticity arise as practical problems in the Civil War reenactment community by presenting my own observations from the 2006 Gettysburg reenactment and by relying on a number of texts produced by participant observers. In particular, I will refer to Robert Lee Hodge, who was made famous by Tony Horwitz's 1996 book, Confederates in the Attic, and who served as a kind of Virgil to the author on his journey through a Confederate Valhalla. From these sources I will argue that, living history, performances require an interpretive apparatus that takes genuine history as its authority, while remaining external to both participants and tourists, who may well be unaware of how closely their own involvement approximates genuine historical events. As demand for food and competition for land rises, it is vital that crop losses are limited. Chemical protection has provided effective control of crop losses in recent years. Alongside chemical fertilizers and improved crop genetics, it has helped to increase crop yields dramatically over the last 6 decades. However, there is now a need to develop complementary alternatives, and researchers from the Rural Economy and Land Use Program have been exploring the potential of, and barriers to, alternative pest management approaches. Alternatives to chemical pesticides are needed because overuse of them leads to pesticide resistance and affects biodiversity and water quality, says Dr. Alistair Bailey. Heightened EU regulations are also leading to the withdrawal of many pesticide products. Hence, complementary approaches are required to reduce use and preserve the efficacy of those valuable pesticides that are still available to sustain food production systems. The environmental impact of the global textile industry is hard to overstate. 1/3 of the water used worldwide is spent fashioning fabrics. For every ton of cloth produced, 200 tons of water is polluted with chemicals and heavy metals. An estimated 1 trillion kilowatt-hours of electricity powers the factories that card and comb, spin and weave, and cut and stitch materials into everything from t-shirts to towels, leaving behind mountains of solid waste and a massive carbon footprint. Where the industry is today is not really sustainable for the long term, says Shreyaskar Chowdhury, chief executive of Pratibha Syntex, a textile manufacturer based outside Indore, India. With something of an "if you build it, they will come" attitude, Mr. Chowdhury has steered Pratibha toward the leading edge of eco-friendly textile production. Under his direction, Pratibha began making clothes with organic cotton in 1999. Initially, the company couldn't find enough organic farms growing cotton in central India to supply its factories. To meet production demands, Chowdhury's team had to convince conventional cotton farmers to change the growing methods. Recently, management of purple loosestrife Lythrum salacrea has been criticized for lack of evidence demonstrating negative impacts of L. salacrea, and management using biocontrol for lack of evidence documenting the failure of conventional control methods. Although little quantitative evidence on negative impacts on native wetland biota and wetland function was available at the onset of the control program in 1985. Recent work has demonstrated that the invasion of purple loosestrife into North American freshwater wetlands alters decomposition rates and nutrient cycling, leads to reductions in wetland plant diversity, reduces pollination and seed output of the native Lythrum alatum, and reduces habitat suitability for specialized wetland bird species such as black terns, least bitterns, pied-billed grebes, and marsh wrens. Conventional methods, physical, mechanical or chemical, have continuously failed to curb the spread of purple loosestrife or to provide satisfactory control. The policies reviewed above derive from aspects of immigration laws, housing schemes and welfare provision, and all have been created through a single-axis, ungendered, racialized perspective. The omission of multidimensionality has subordinated the most vulnerable members of society and created even tougher environments for housing security to be achieved, and an arena where existing inequalities are being constantly repeated and reinforced. The reviewed policies have identified a lack of constructive support available to the vulnerable in the UK. Furthermore, the knock-on effects of certain policies, whether related to immigration or state welfare provision, have also been identified, such as employment restriction, exclusion and confidence reduction, as well as their connection with housing security.